Hey, I'm Andy, this is New Fiction, and today we'll talk about some movies I just watched. So, I woke up on the morning of January 1st, probably alongside a billion other people, and thought the same thing. I want to do something out of my comfort zone this year. So what better way than this, a YouTube video for whoever's out there. And I was trying to think about what exactly would I talk about. I watched a ton of movies last year, a lot of movies, and I want this to be sort of a running diary of the things that I watched and the things that I liked and the things that I didn't like throughout the year. I'm no critic, I'm just a guy that likes movies, and I want to share those experiences with you. So let's kick it off with our first movie, Anatomy of a Fall by Justine Triet. So I'm excited to talk about this because I really came into this blind. I didn't know much about Justine Triet's work or Sandra Hüller's work, and this film really just took me by surprise. It's basically a classic crime mystery. Sandra Hüller plays an accomplished writer who becomes the prime suspect in her husband's mysterious death. And the big question is, did she do it? I think what's interesting is that Anatomy of a Fall is not presenting anything super new. It's following a pretty set structure that everybody should be familiar with if they have ever watched any kind of mystery or crime thriller. But it does it in a way that's just so well crafted that you can't help but to get hooked by it. And how can you not love movies like these, right? Where it puts you, the audience, basically as a detective, and you're trying to solve this case. And I think Justine Triet does a really great job of giving you enough information to feel like you can actually crack this puzzle, but keeping you far enough away from it and adding enough ambiguity to it where you also realize that some things are just not knowable. I think that's part of the central message of the story, is that no matter how much you try to recontextualize some of the past and frame it in a different way, put it under a spotlight, it's never going to be perfect. There's always going to be some missing pieces that you can't quite grasp. But we live in this system that requires these black and white answers, and I think the tension between the two things is really cool. If I had to choose one word to describe this movie, it would be immersive. There were parts of this movie that felt so real that I lost track that I was watching a movie. Like some of the courtroom scenes when someone is getting questioned on the stand. Everybody in this movie, their performances are just so good and so convincing that sometimes it felt like I was watching a documentary. If there was a Dog Academy Award, then the dog in this movie would hands down win Best Actor. I do have one small gripe. It's less of a gripe, more of a comment, but near the start of the movie, there is a scene that's pretty key to the rest of the plot, where a song is being played on repeat over and over again at a really loud volume. The song is a steel drum cover of 50 Cent's PIMP, and this song is so ridiculous, it's so bad and jarring that it almost took me out of the movie. I totally get that it was intentional, that was the effect that was needed for that scene, but this song will be stuck in your head for weeks. Okay, there's no way to say this without sounding kind of pretentious, but the best trilogy I've seen in the last couple of years has got to be Aki Kaurismäki's Proletariat trilogy. And it's more of a trilogy in the sense that it shares similar themes across all three movies rather than characters or story beats. All three movies, Shadows in Paradise, Ariel, and The Match Factory Girl, all three of them are about the working class in Helsinki, and it follows a main character that's usually a little down on their luck, just scraping by on these dead-end jobs, just trying to make a little bit of sense of the world around them and cling on to the few good things that come their way. All the while, in the background of this, there's this really oppressive and lonely Helsinki, And I know that doesn't really sound very appealing when I say it out loud, but honestly, they're some of the best and funniest and most human and sincere movies that I've seen in a long time. Ariel, which is the middle of what's considered their trilogy, is, to me, I would say, a great place to start because it really covers a wide range of what you would expect in one of his movies. Ariel follows Taisto, who is a miner in rural Finland that loses his job and ends up in the big city of Helsinki, where things just continue getting worse for him. So Taisto falls in love, he gets involved in the criminal underworld of Helsinki, he ends up in jail, he ends up breaking out of jail, but after all this, it still feels like it got nowhere at all, right? And that's definitely a central theme in a lot of his movies. Kaurismäki likes to paint these stories about people that are often ignored. They are at the bottom of the ladder, they're looking for a way up, but they can't find anything. So they end up getting more and more desperate, and they lash out at the world just to take a big swing at it and see what happens. And it sounds really bleak, and in a lot of ways it is, but the characters are just so human that you can't help but to empathize with them. One thing that I love about this movie, and all three of the movies in the trilogy, is that there's always this kind of punk rock and roll thing going on. In this one in particular, Taisto, the main character, the way that he dresses, the car that he drives, and the bars that he goes to, I wish I could be part of that somehow. There's always a great musical scene in all three movies. It's just such a great portrayal of a specific time and place that is obviously very personal to Kaurismäki. This movie also has a scene that is one of the funniest character deaths I've seen in a movie, and I think that scene perfectly captures the humor that comes through in all of his movies. It's just so offbeat, you just get caught by surprise every time someone says something. This next movie is a bit of a lie because I actually watched it in December and not January, but it was the last movie I watched in December, so I think that still counts. It's When Harry Met Sally by Rob Reiner. I love the idea of people associating a movie with a time of year or a seasonal holiday, but I've never really done that in practice. You know, like watching Harry Potter in the fall, I guess that's the thing. But in 2023, because I watched so many movies, I wanted to make sure that I ended it with a good note. And apparently I'm the only person in the world that hasn't seen When Harry Met Sally. And according to the internet, it's a great New Year's movie. You could watch it at a specific time and hit the New Year's scene just as a ball drops at Times Square. I feel like there's not much left to say about this because it's so beloved by so many people, and it's been that way for so long. I can definitely see why people love it so much because it's just a great rom-com, maybe the best. I don't know if that's a hot take. It follows Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan, who keep bumping into each other over the course of their time in New York. It's a will they, won't they situation. But I guess the twist here, if you can call it that, it doesn't all happen at once, immediately when they meet. It happens over a longer period of time as they slowly realize what their priorities are and what they find important in life, which I really liked because it just felt a little bit more genuine than how it usually works in similar movies. And it's got everything else you want in a rom-com. It's got two really charismatic leads that have great chemistry, and it's funny, and it's really thoughtful. It's like the movie version of a really comforting meal where you're surprised at how simple everything can be when you just use the right ingredients. I'm also a sucker for movies set in New York City, especially now that I live here. And ever since moving here 6 years ago, I've been trying to rewatch as many as I can because it is basically like another character in the movie, right? And just having that experience of seeing the city in a different context and the people that might live in it. And in a world where there's a million movies set in this city, this is one of the good ones. Also, as an aside, I finally saw that scene in Kansas, and it's great, obviously, but I walked by it the other day, and the line outside is ridiculous. If you're visiting New York for the first time, please don't waste your day. waiting in line for Katz's. If you want a deli experience, you can go to these places instead, and I guarantee you'll have a better time. If you haven't watched any of these 3 movies, then please do. They're all definitely worth your time. And if you have watched them, let me know what you think about them in the comments and tell me what I should be watching next. That was fun. I hope you enjoyed it. Let's chat again soon.